some of your desires are hidden away, not from you, but for you.
False desires promise you a feeling, but can't deliver. True desires ask something of you.
Just because something is hard doesn't mean that it's not for you.
The pain is purposeful. All right, the question we're proposing today is, should we pursue every desire in our heart? Why or why not?
Yeah, and I think even building on that, how do you know if something is a desire that belongs to you, or if it's a desire that you kind of picked up somewhere along the way through being influenced by other people, through being influenced through social media? Like we talked about in our last episode, our culture today really does tell you to live for you, follow your passions, pursue your dreams. And I think that there is this idea that we should pursue the desires of our heart. That's a beautiful phrase. That's a beautiful statement and sentiment. Pursue the desires of your heart. And I think that there's truth to that statement. I think there's validity to that statement. But sometimes we get a little bit skewed. Sometimes I think we get a little bit lost. And especially when you add in the layer of being in business, being an entrepreneur, does it make sense all the time to pursue your desires? And how do you know which ones are yours?
And I think, too, being in this generation with social media and all the distractions of that makes it even harder sometimes to figure out what is your desire and what is coming from external noise that you're kind of picking up on. How do you know what's yours and what's like a desire that maybe isn't yours, that's a distraction, that's vying for your attention and maybe pulling you away from what you really need to be doing? So like in this day and age, there's just so much distraction, and like you really do have to like cut through all that noise and find your own way and figure out what desires are actually yours.
My encouragement at the top of this conversation is to test every desire. Poke at it, prod at it, explore it. Don't follow every single whim that you feel on a day-to-day basis. That's when we start trying to live to honor our feelings. We start trying to live to honor every single desire, want, passion. And although we should pursue some of our desires, we shouldn't actually pursue all of them. That would be my stance. We should not pursue every desire of our heart, because sometimes your feelings are going to be fickle. Your desires are not actually going to be your own. But the desires that are your own should most certainly be pursued. I believe that our purpose was created, and then we were created to honor that calling, to fulfill on the assignment before us, to do the work that we're meant to do on this planet. So there is validity to pursuing your desires, but which ones do we pursue? And in what timing? In what timing do we pursue these desires? There have definitely been times where I've tried to accelerate the pursuit of a desire in the wrong timing, in the wrong season. That's like hoping for spring when it's winter. It's the dead of winter, and you're always going to be disappointed no matter how many seeds you plant and you sit and you watch and you hope and you wait for them to sprout forth. They're not going to, because it's not the right timing. It's not the right season.
But even if it's like the off season, I feel like whatever you're doing in that can prepare you to get closer to that desire. Like, I mean, for example, one of the greatest desires of my life for as long as I can remember, since I was a little girl, was just to have a husband and have kids and have a family of my own. Like, that was a fixed desire within me that sprouted out from within. No one like ever put that on me. I just wanted that for as long as I can remember. I was like a 3-year-old little girl crushing on the pastor's son at church. Like I have always wanted that. And I feel like throughout my whole life, everything that I've been doing has been like getting me closer to that desire, even if it's not the right timing or it's not the right season for it. It's like every season serves that purpose to get you closer to the fulfillment of those desires. Because like you said, we are created with desires and purpose in us, and it is our joy and our privilege and our like right almost to fulfill those desires. Like I feel like that's one of the like main purposes of life. It's like we have a purpose within us, or more than one. We have desires, and that's like part of the whole point of it all.
And I think the desires that are truly our own, when they're fulfilled, they do bring us fulfillment and they bring us joy. But there's also this oftentimes ripple effect that happens on the lives of other people because of our desires. And it's not to say that every desire that you have needs to be for the benefit of other people. But I've just found historically in my journey thus far that a lot of times those desires, when they're fulfilled, there is a ripple effect. And some of them are my own, for my own pleasure, like having our own home, for example. I mean, I could even argue that's a ripple effect because that's, giving a safe place for myself and my husband and our kids to grow up and have a childhood. But there's a season for everything in the sense that it's going to look different. Your pursuit of that desire, I think, is going to look different season over season too. So that's just a caveat here. It's like if you're in the season of pursuing something that you feel in your spirit is meant for you, you're called to actualize this thing, don't get caught up in your own expectations of what that should look like today. Because if you get caught up in your expectations of what it should look like now, and when in actuality, it needs to look like something different to prepare you for the sustained actualization of that thing later on, you're going to be disappointed every single day. You're going to be frustrated every single day. And that's where you kind of have to come back to trusting your own path and trusting your own timing.
Yeah, it comes back to trust and faith and belief. Like for me, I just wholeheartedly believe and have believed my whole life that those core desires of mine, I will fulfill eventually, even if it's not yet, even if it's not right now. I just have I think that's a marker of a true desire. One of your true desires is that you just have this next level belief, even if it feels irrational. Maybe you're like, I just know it within myself, in my innermost being, that I will have this one day. And that keeps you going in those seasons where maybe you're not seeing the fruition of that yet. But you're just like, I know I'll get it eventually. And when I do, it'll be the perfect timing. And I'll be grown enough, mature enough, ready enough to carry it.
Yeah. That's so true. So how do we start to differentiate between desire that is our own, a desire that we're meant to pursue, and a desire that is not ours, a desire that we've picked up somewhere along the way through being influenced by other people?
I think that's one thing, thinking about false desires that aren't your own. I've found that when those come up for me, it's external. It comes from somewhere else, something that I'm influenced by, whatever media I'm consuming. It could be social media is the biggest culprit for me in recent years, that I've had desires come about that felt fun and I wanted to pursue in the moment, but really weren't meant for me and weren't my own. And I think that is a mark of a false desire, is something that's popping up, vying for your attention, and it feels there's this urgency to it, you want to just go for it right now. And whereas on the flip side of that, when it's a true desire, I feel like there's this level of patience and grace to just keep pursuing that desire. You are willing to be persistent with it. But these fleeting desires that aren't yours, you feel this sense of urgency. At least I have. I feel this sense of urgency. I want to do it now. Y'all, I had this random fleeting desire maybe a year or two ago. It wasn't even that long ago, to start up some sort of coffee company, coffee truck mobile truck kind of thing. That's like a thing. Like people, if you go on TikTok and Instagram, you can see people doing that as like small businesses and whatever. And I was like, that seems like so fun and different and unique. And that would maybe push me out of my comfort zone. And I was like making a case for it in my head of like, I kind of want to do that. And then sooner or later, that desire just kind of like dissipated, evaporated, because I was just like, I feel like it sounds more fun than it actually is. And I don't feel personal conviction to really actually pursue that. It was just something that popped up and sounded interesting. And at the time, too, I was struggling some with this lack and scarcity mentality for some reason. And feeling like if I just do something like that, I'll have more control over like finances because like I'll be in the driver's seat and I'll do this and whatever. I like wanted that control. And really at the end of the day, that wasn't a personal, real core desire of mine. And when I let it go, I was just like, it's not mine. It never was. And it was actually kind of easy to let go of it because I was like, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to pursue that. But there was that sense of urgency to it of like, I want to just do this. It sounds fun. I'm going to like figure this out. I like started researching, more about coffee, and like I do love coffee. I'm a consumer of coffee, but I was like researching all about coffee and how much is a food truck kind of thing and what's the cost of all this. And it's just this like urgency that distracts you from your true assignment and what you really need to be focusing on. That's the danger of the fleeting false desires, is that it steals your focus.
That is it. If fear is the motivation, it is not a true desire. It's a distraction. And I would argue it's a distraction that is arising in that moment for a very specific reason, because you're getting closer and closer and closer to the work you're meant to be doing, to actualizing your own assignment, honoring the call, like you're headed in the right direction. And along the way, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to move from a place of fear, to move from a place of scarcity, and can it kind of get knocked off the horse? And you start dabbling in all of these different things. I mean, business owners do this every single day. You're trying to focus on a million different things, and 9 times out of 10, the culprit is social media. And it does create that sense of urgency, that sense of, oh, I'm missing out on something. Oh, I'm going to get left behind. Oh, I got to jump on this train. We do not make decisions from that state anymore in our business. I don't care if we are not on our feed for 5 months. We do not show up from a state of fear and we have to serve the algorithm and we have to keep up and we have to be present all the time, because that is not how you get closer to your assignment. That is not purposeful. That's sporadic. That's serving the algorithm. That's creating surface level content. That's not honoring what you're here to do from a business perspective. But don't follow fear. That's just a distraction.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of business, I'm curious from your perspective, how desires play into being an entrepreneur. And like, when you make business decisions, do you keep desires in mind? Do you let desires kind of guide the way a little bit? Or are you more rational and logistical kind of thinking through those decisions? Because like, I'm not really a business owner, so I don't think exactly like that.
I don't think there is a cut and dry, black and white answer to this. I think there's a time and a place for rational thought and irrational thought. But I think if we really break down a desire, a lot of times that's going to look irrational. That's not going to look like rational, strategic thinking. So sometimes there's going to be a time and a place for you to have rational thought, like you need to make money. Not every passion creates a profit. So let's say that you have a vision. This is like your calling. It's this big thing that you want to do. Maybe you want to go speak on stages and sell product. But right now you're not there. So what are you going to do now to honor that vision? Pursuing that desire today might look like, I'm going to take some one-on-one consulting clients, or I'm going to work 3 jobs so I can fund this dream. If you're pursuing a true desire, like Jordan said, you will have the grace, you will have the stamina, you will have the commitment to show up for it now when it doesn't look like what you want it to look like in the future. So I'm still allowing that desire to drive me. I'm still following that innate desire that I have that's connected to my calling, that's connected to my purpose. It's not a distraction. And the reason that I can stay the course, that I can spend years getting there, is because it's a true desire. So we have to use discernment as business owners and wisdom to decide and understand which of our desires are fixed desires and which of our desires are fleeting. You were created after your purpose, which means that you have desires that are divine inside of you. You have desires that are meant for you, that you are called to actualize. Those do exist. But sometimes along the way, we have fleeting desires that come up from outside sources. So we have to use discernment and wisdom to understand which is which. So in business, yes, I think there's a time and a place to pursue your desires, but you have to be willing to pursue that desire even when it doesn't look like what you want it to look like. And I think that's where people get tripped up, because they're expecting for that thing to be actualized today so they can feel happy and great and go lucky. But in actuality, you're going to have to do a lot of different things to honor that desire. So if you're willing to do all of those things and take your time getting there, if that's what it takes, then it's likely a true desire. And if not, then it's likely not a true desire. Sometimes too, this is going to look irrational. You're going to look crazy. I think that sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to have a little bit of crazy. If you're a business owner, you have to be willing to bet on your desires, even when they don't look like they make sense on paper. So a prime example of this, right now, we're working to build a studio upstairs so we can podcast and I can record for YouTube. That is not a core revenue stream right now, but I feel a compulsion to do it. I feel a compulsion to honor that vision, to honor that desire, because I know that there's something there and I know I'm meant to pursue it. So that doesn't make sense on paper. That doesn't make sense in a spreadsheet, but I don't care about that right now because I know it will later on. So even with that, I think that there is still a strategic lens to that. You're just taking your time, you're pacing yourself to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, because earlier before we started recording, you said something like about having the desire to podcast. And I'm curious, when you actually felt that desire, when did you realize you wanted to do that? Like, did you want to do that years and years ago before we ever did it? When did that desire unlock for you?
I like this question because I was going to bring this up earlier. Some of your desires you've known about since you were born. Like, I knew I wanted to be a wife and a mom, but some of your desires are hidden away, not from you, but for you, because they're being hidden away for the right timing. So to answer that question, I did not always want a podcast. I didn't always want to speak. In fact, I would prefer writing. I would prefer to sit behind a computer and not talk to anyone, not speak, not go to conferences, speak on a stage. I would prefer to not do any of that. But somewhere along the way, several years ago, when you were like, it's time for the podcast, we need to do it, I started podcasting, and it was like, as I did it, the desire got bigger and bigger and bigger to podcast and then to speak. But I didn't always desire that. Sometimes you're going to have desires that grow as you show up and you take action. I think it's so interesting because my parents always say, I don't know how you stumbled into this world of what you do today. They would see me get online and do these lives and talk about all these different things, optimizing your business, client experience, all this stuff, all of these gifts that I grew into over time. And I look back at even some of my first lives where I was doing my first teachings in our Facebook group. And of course, I've grown a lot since then. So, she was doing her best, but I even see the potential in that girl who was talking in a high-pitched little voice, and she was trying to like, just be a certain type of way. She wasn't super confident, but I even see potential in that. And I had no idea that I was gifted for business. I had no idea that I was gifted to speak, to teach. But the more that I did it, the more that gifting showed up, the more that it was sharpened, the more that it was refined. And then within the last year and a half, I've started to have this desire to speak. And that is not something that I would say I've always had. I mean, I excelled in public speaking. When I have had to speak in my life, there's been a grace. But it's not like I had a compulsion to do it until the last year and a half, because it was being hidden away for me for the perfect time. So no, I haven't always wanted to podcast. I haven't always wanted to speak. Sometimes desires are hidden away and they come to the forefront in perfect timing. And the only way that you uncover those is by following the highlights, following the best next step in front of you, and seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I've found really interesting throughout my life. I had those core desires of like family, like husband and having a home, having kids. Like that was always something that was steady for me from the start, like for as long as I can remember. But that is such a good point that some desires unlock later through experience. And I don't know why. I guess that is why. It's like it's hidden away for you for the right timing. But like when I was a kid, I got like journals and diaries as like little girls do. And I started writing in my little journals and I really liked that. And I excelled in English classes and stuff like that throughout schooling. And over time, like that desire for me kind of expanded and grew. And I think somehow it's just like through the experience, through doing something, sometimes that's when a desire of yours unlocks. But the desire was there from the start. Like it was always, like we were saying, like you were created after your purpose and after those core desires were like made for you. And sometimes it's just over time that those desires surface and you realize, oh, like I've always kind of wanted that, but I didn't know it or I didn't realize it, but it was always there. Mm-hmm. I find that so interesting. And that makes me intrigued to just keep growing and living life, because I'm like, what other desires might come up later that might pop up through experience, through deeper revelations about yourself and what you want to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, something I find really interesting is I feel like there is a tie between purpose and desires. Like they're not the same thing. Like the way I see it, there was this purpose created and then we were created to fulfill that purpose. And I think desire is kind of like the force or the thing that like drives us to fulfilling that purpose. Like you unlocking the desire of speaking and podcasting, that is playing into your purpose. But like you've had to go through so many experiences and growth to even get to the point where you wanted to podcast or where you wanted to speak. It's almost like the desire, it's like we're wired for desire and for the joy and the thrill of like the experience of when those desires unlock and going after our purpose, and it all leads to the fulfillment of our purpose. And it's not even something we have to orchestrate. We just kind of get to go on this journey.
That's so true. I think desire acts as little highlights that are deposited over time that get you really excited, that fill you with joy. You have this compulsion, you can't help but follow this thing. And it's like every desire is just a little stepping stone or multiple stepping stones to the purpose, the larger purpose or purposes. But it does feel very intangible and gigantic to say, just pursue your purpose, just live for your purpose, because people are like, what's my purpose? Like you can be like 80 years old and not really know your full purpose. That's such a big question. But if you really break it down to the desires and the highlights. That's what makes it tangible to get there. And I just see that as like God's wink to us when he deposits a desire and it's like, oh yeah, now it's time for this thing. Oh, you're ready for this. Now I'm going to deposit this desire to speak. And I remember even when I felt that desire, I think that you can get more complex with desires because sometimes for me, my experience has been it hasn't felt like the thing that would bring me the most joy. It's actually felt like something I wanted to resist because it felt so big and it felt so scary. But I do think that there is this element of sometimes your purpose does come with discomfort. It does come with things that scare you because there's a weightiness to the calling and there's a lot of responsibility there too. So when that desire was deposited, I was like, wait, what? No, I don't actually think I really want that. I'm not going to sign up for the speaking program. And then it was like this gnawing feeling that wouldn't go away for days and days. And I was like, fine. Oh my gosh, I'll sign up for this speaking program. And then I was like, all right, I signed up for the program and that's all I have to do. There's a graduation at the end where I'm supposed to speak on stage, but I don't really have to do that. That's up for negotiation. That's open-ended. And I really don't think I'm going to go. And then as I was in this program, day after day after day, there was still a level of nerves there, but it was more and more excitement was growing inside of me for the perfect time and fulfillment of me getting on stage and delivering this keynote. So I think that that is an interesting angle too, worth discussing, is like sometimes your desires grow on you. And I always find that those desires for me are from the Lord himself, because I wouldn't assign myself to go and speak on stages. I wouldn't really want that for myself. I'd just like to be comfortable in my house and raise my baby. Last year, I went through this whole negotiation period with God. I was like, you know what? I kind of feel like I don't have to do business anymore. I mean, I can, but like I could also just stay home and be a stay-at-home mom and not have to do anything else. I could do that. So there's like this negotiation that was happening. And then I had to realize, no, just because something's uncomfortable or just because there's tension or just because something is hard doesn't mean that it's not for you. You know, I'm in this season of figuring out how to do business and also raise my son. So all that said, sometimes your desires are going to come with a little bit of friction, a little bit of tension as you grow into who you need to be to fulfill that purpose that the desires are leading you to.
I love what you said about sometimes those true desires grow on you. Like it comes from within you, but it's like it kind of has to grow on you, or you have to continue to grow into the weightiness of that desire, because it kind of pushes you. Something I feel like I discovered in thinking more about desires and how do you differentiate between what's a true and false desire is that false desires promise you a feeling but can't deliver. It's like how I wanted to do this like coffee food truck thing because I wanted the feeling that it would promise, but like I knew it wouldn't deliver that. I knew it would be so much more work. I know something like that is such hard work. Like people who run any sort of drink, beverage, food business in general, it's so much work. So I was like, I know that's not going to promise me what I'm thinking it will. And on the flip side of that, true desires ask something of you. True desires push at you and push you into a new place of responsibility, and it pushes you to grow into the person you need to be so that you can actually carry the weight of that fulfilled desire. Like, I've always had this desire to write. We both really love to write and communicating through writing and now speaking. And I have had this desire kind of unlock in the last few years where I just feel this possibility of like writing more poetry and writing books, writing a book. And I haven't really fully gone like head in on that because I am like, it kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is going to ask something of me. It's going to require a level of commitment and perseverance that I haven't really put into something like that before. Like, I'm a pretty persistent person, I would say, but with something like that, it's going to require a lot of hard work and effort and confronting things within myself that I don't want to have to confront, like confronting perfectionistic tendencies. And I just know writing a book is like, it's the work itself, but it's also the work inside of you of like becoming the person you need to be to write the book, whatever it is. But I just know that it's like, it's there. Like, but that desire wasn't always top of mind for me. It wasn't always at the surface. That kind of unlocked later. Like, sometimes desires can kind of unlock because someone else speaks it into existence or like calls it out on your behalf. Like, our dad said something about that a few years ago and was like, you could like write books or something along the lines of like, you could be an author and you should do that. You should write books. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe. But ever since he said that, when I think about writing and when I think about writing books, I just like hear his voice and I hear that like almost confidence that he had in my ability. And he was like, you're a writer and like go forth and prosper, go forth and write that book. Like, that was the energy that I got from that conversation. And it's just stuck with me ever since. But I know it'll be so much work, and that kind of scares me and deters me from really going for it. But I know I need to.
Yeah.
So
we would save so much time in this life if we learned how to discern between a fixed desire and a fleeting desire. I think we've all had our experience of pursuing like our coffee truck, you know, our coffee truck success. And I don't see any of that as wasted time. I see it all as lessons learned, and God works all things together for good. And he's the perfect orchestrator of everything. I think about when Josh and I were dating, I had this vivid vision of being on stage. I had a mic in my hand. I had this like moody blue lighting behind me. And I assumed that I was up there leading a band and singing because I loved to sing. I was a worship leader. Jordan and I would play piano and we wrote music. Obviously, we're writers. And so I had all of these pieces that I fit together in my mind to create this picture of, that's it. Josh and I are going to start a band. This was not vocalized, but we were writing music together just for fun. Josh went to school for music and we both bonded over a lot of our interests, music included. So we wrote music together and I was feeling like what we were writing was getting really good. And I'm like, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to sing on stages and I'll do whatever it takes. I'm going to work at, coffee shops and I'll learn how to make latte art. And like, it will all be, I was living that hipster life, you guys. But now that I'm looking back, I wonder if my brain was trying to logically put those pieces together and create a picture of what I thought the actualization of this vision was going to look like. But what if that was me speaking on stage? What if all of my experience leading worship and singing on stage and emceeing and all of that was preparation for what I do today? So sometimes things are working together in a way that you don't fully see or understand. And almost always it's working way better. It's going to work out way better than you ever could have pieced it together, than it ever would have if you tried to force it. So it's, again, another little wink, because sometimes even your coffee truck fleeting desire is something that will lead you to the true fixed desire, because it all works out in the end.
It's so true. I had a thought that maybe my little desire when it comes to like coffee, who knows what that might be, something someday. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But I remember having these thoughts when I was like a teenager, back when you were living that hipster life and I was trying to live that hipster life. We would we went to this coffee shop in downtown Raleigh, and they had these lattes that were like colorful. Like they made them like, I had one that was like blue. It was like so cool to me. And I remember sitting there and looking around, and I was like, we should do this someday. Like we should have a coffee shop. How cool would that be? How fun would that be? Like I was really getting into coffee at that time. And then years later, I had that freaking coffee truck, like fleeting thought and desire. And now I'm like, I really don't have a pull within me to do that seriously right now. But I'm like, who knows? You never know what that could be someday. And it's like, it's not a bad thing that those thoughts have come up, but maybe it would have been not great if I had like really tried to force those things or really tried to pursue them. Because sometimes there's just little whims that come up that are really just trying to distract you from what you need to be doing right then and there. And so you do have to have that discernment to know, you know, when is the right timing? Is this right for this season? Is this right for right now? Maybe not. But maybe it'll come up later again. I don't know. It could.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if someday we create a space or an event where people gather and coffee is had. Who knows? I mean, I think that's the whole angle of follow the highlights and the desires, but don't be so committed to what you think it should look like. Don't be so committed to your expectation and manufacturing what you think it should look like and how you think that it should play out, because you will be frustrated. Nothing in my life has worked out exactly as I wanted it to. The timing of getting married, having kids, our home, any of my possessions, my business, like none of it has worked the exact way that I planned or that I intended, but it's all worked out exactly as it's meant to. So don't be so married to what you think it should look like. Maybe little desires are being sprinkled and planted in you as little highlights that are meant to be pursued later, or maybe they're actualized in a different way than you thought it would be. Another thing I wanted to explore is when a desire feels really hard to actualize, and you've been like pushing for this thing and you've been aiming for this thing, is that the world, the universe telling you that this isn't meant for you? Or is that just part of the process of the pursuit and the becoming? Because I have this conversation often with clients and just acquaintances in the online space, and I'll see people talk about this, you know, that there should be a certain level of ease that comes when you're on your own path. And I think yes and no.
Yes and no. That is something with questions like these, I feel like it's just yes and no at the same time. It's kind of like a gray area. Because I'm like with my desire to write or to write books, I know that that's going to be challenging for me and it's going to feel hard, but I just know that I need to write. And so I feel like I know the pain is purposeful and it's going to shape me, and I'm like willing to go through whatever I need to go through to fulfill that desire. So I feel like there is some level of difficulty even with your true desires. There's going to sometimes be resistance. It's not always easy, but I do feel like there should be some level of, I don't know if ease is the right word, but like grace and like I said, I just have this belief and this faith that I'm, going to have a family and a home one day. That might be challenging when I'm in it and when I'm, fulfilling that desire, but I'm like, there's a grace there. It may not be easy, but I also have that faith and belief that like I will get it and it will happen one day and it will be beautiful and it will be what it will be. But I think it's like both and. It's like there's the pressure that you get under when you're working towards a desire. I don't know. But that's the thing too with like a false desire. I feel like there is a lot of tension and friction because it's like not meant for you.
I think the better way to put that is with a false desire, there comes a lot of pressure and urgency and comparison and anxiety.
Yes.
That's a different sensation than I'm experiencing tension as I climb this mountain and get to my destination.
Yes.
When you are full of fear, urgency, anxiety, that is almost always linked to a false desire. or a fleeting desire.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I agree, pain and tension come with the pursuit of your desires because the desires are the stepping stones to the purpose. And so the path has to prepare you. So therefore, the desires have to prepare you for where you're going. So there's going to be tension, push and pull, refinement, strength training. So I wouldn't see delay, detours as a sign from the universe that you're not meant to pursue this thing. I would see it as, ooh, I'm getting really prepared for where I'm going, which means that where I'm going is going to be great. It's going to be big. And I need to be the best version of me. I need to be strong. I need to be proficient in this area in order to get there and sustain it when I arrive.
Yeah, because the real danger is like if you feel tension in the pursuit of your desires and you just accept that as some sort of sign and you dip and you're like, well, maybe this isn't meant for me. I'm going to just do something else or try something different. I feel like that's the real danger because you're trying to avoid the growth that you need to go through or whatever pressure and tension is trying to build you up. You're just trying to run away from it. And then maybe you'll get to, I feel like everything always kind of works out the way that it should. It's like, even if you try to run away from your true desires, I feel like eventually you'll get back on track. That's my belief. I'm like, you'll find your way back to it eventually, even if you try to run away from it or you try to escape the tension of it.
Mm-hmm. You get redirected.
Yeah.
But if you abandon the desire at the first sign of tension, you might live a life where you feel comfortable, but you're not going to live the life that you're called to live.
Amen.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I think my biggest encouragement in closing would be to follow the highlights. And as you do follow those highlights in your spirit, test them, poke at them, prod them, and really use wisdom and discernment. Is this something that is my own? Is this connected to my call? Or is this just something that I've picked up along the way? Is this just something that I've seen other people do? They look happy, they look successful, and so I'm going to pursue it. Every single day, we have to test the desires of our heart because feelings are fleeting and feelings are all wrapped up in desire too. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some poking that we have to do at those desires. And if you have a desire that's been with you for a long time and you keep coming back to it, that's very likely something that you are called to pursue. And if there's something that pops up today, that who's to say that that's not it either, but there has to be some exploration and discernment. It can't just be, I'm operating on a whim every single day and I'm going to just do you, boo, and follow my passions and follow my dreams. That is not strategic from a business perspective, nor is it sound when it comes to the pursuit of your desires. We have to have more intentional thought behind all of it.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if you're questioning anything in regards to your purpose or your desires, I'm always going to recommend take some time off of social media and away from technology. That's been so helpful for me. I still use technology and I still use social media now, but sometimes if I'm in a season or a period of time of questioning and needing to get back to myself and my center and like what am I designed for, I take time away from it and try to journal it out and just process with myself or process with trusted people like my family to see if this is the right thing that I should be doing. But take the time to step away sometimes. I'm not always going to recommend that. It's like the end of every podcast episode. I'm like, just get off your phone for like a little bit and like sit with yourself. And if this is something that you're questioning right now, if you should pursue a certain desire or if you shouldn't, sometimes social media is just too much noise and you can't see straight or think straight through that.
It's really hard to discern anything. Use wisdom when you're living on social media.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we each have desires that we're called to pursue. They're connected to our purpose. They benefit us. They make us happy. They make us money. They bring us joy, but they also contribute to the earth and the people in it. So don't shy away from your desires, pursue them, commit to them, stay the path, even when it doesn't look like what you think it should look like, because it's going to change your life and it's going to benefit other people as well. So,
absolutely.
Boom.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We'll catch you in the next one.